Welcome back to the Views from the Grad Lab podcast. This is episode 30. I'm Ben. That's Trent. That's Michael, who you probably haven't seen in about 2 years. We're back here for, right. It's been a while. Episode 30, playoff season is here, and we're excited because there's a lot of fun things to talk about. The Broncos coming to town to take on the Bills. First time they've made the playoffs in 9 seasons. Last time they made the playoffs was, funny enough, was Peyton Manning's Super Bowl. And when he rode off into the sunset. And ironically, Sean McDermott was the defensive coordinator in that game, and they lost. So it's a fun little note there. The Broncos coming to town. They're a team that I think presents a lot of issues for the Bills. I think Sean Payton described them as young, hungry, and dangerous. You know, they that fits them to a T. They play hard. They play physical. They play fearless. This is a football team that not a lot of people thought too much of before this season. I'm pretty sure Vegas had their line at 5.5. So they obviously exceeded that by quite a wide margin. And it's kind of a lose-lose for the Bills because it's like if you lose this game, season's a total disaster in a way. So you don't win a single playoff game. And if you do win, you're like, okay, you're meeting expectations. You're doing what's expected of you. So it's kind of a lose-lose.
It didn't even cross my mind that the Bills were in the playoffs. Like it's just like I expected it.
It's like a normal thing. Yeah.
I was thinking about what we were talking about at the beginning of the season, and because I was just like, man, it's going to take something crazy for me to feel satisfied. And our expectations at the beginning of the year were this, like maybe winning a wild card game, but probably not making it past the divisional round. Now we're full-fledged. Okay. Super Bowl or bust.
Yeah.
And it's crazy what's changed.
It's crazy how much it's shifted. Yeah. I mean, like I said, we always said, going back to the preseason when we talked about this team going into the year, as long as you have the quarterback that we do, you're going to have a fighting chance no matter what, no matter how bad the roster might be around them. Like we've seen it year after year. Like there's been some pretty rough teams around Josh and pretty rough supporting cast in certain different areas. Like he's still come through for us. And that's the same case here. But I kind of wanted to talk about the Broncos a little bit first because they are an interesting football team. They obviously drafted Bo Nix 12th overall, and he's had a pretty good rookie season, all things considered. Not much was expected of this team, and I think he's done well considering the circumstances, and he doesn't really have a ton of weapons to work with. He has a great offensive line that's obviously well-known, first in pass block win rate, first in run block win rate. It's probably the best offensive line in football. And but outside of that, they just don't have a ton of weapons. But I wanted to ask you guys first. I'll go to Michael first. What did you guys think of Bo Nix's season, and what kind of problems do you think he presents to a Bills defense that's been up and down all year?
Watching a few Broncos games I've seen, he looks exactly the same as he did in Oregon, which is very similar to how he looked at Auburn, which makes sense. He's played like 64 college games or something very close to that number. So it's not exactly we're talking about a rookie. I mean, he might as well. Like he played Auburn and Oregon played football against each other, and the quarterbacks were Bo Nix and Justin Herbert. So, I mean, he's been playing. Yeah, he's been playing
25
football.
next month.
25 for a rookie. Yeah, very old.
I would rookie quarterback. But
yeah,
I mean, he throws a very nice deep bomb. He also throws a ton of interceptions that aren't deep bombs.
Yeah.
So take with that what you will. They don't run the ball very well. It's like we talk about the offensive line. That might be the only reason they ever gain a yard is because they don't run the ball for particularly good.
I look at this team this year who wasn't, there wasn't much expected of them. They have $98 million of dead cap space. Like they are eating a ton of dead money.
Well, I'm pretty sure
that Wilson. A lot of that was because of Russell Wilson, but they are handicapped financially, and what he's been able to do with this team, I think, has been very impressive. And I think, like we all can agree on, like Bo Nix isn't some, he's not going to wow you with his arm. He doesn't have the crazy arm talent or anything like that, but he's a timing and rhythm based quarterback. He's like, he's pretty much middle of the pack. What you're getting with him. He's a good athlete. He can scramble well. And like you said, Trent, he can hit those deeper throws. He doesn't have the best arm in the world, but he's got a good enough arm. And he has the accuracy and the touchdown feel that makes it a problem. But the good thing is for the Bills, there's not a ton of true vertical threats on the Broncos offense outside of Marvin Mims.
I would argue that the Bills' current defense takes away his strength, which is the deep ball. Like,
Yeah.
he throws underneath. Those throws are a 50-50 proposition of who's catching it.
Do you think it's relevant enough to bring up his ability to rush? Because I think that's probably one of his bigger strengths. He's a very good athlete. He's not like a Lamar Jackson, obviously, but he can run. He's ninth in scramble yards for quarterbacks. Like when a lane opens up, he's going to take it and he's going to scramble and he's going to get good yardage. One thing I did want to ask you, Mike, is we talked about this Broncos offensive line and how good they are. And they're up against a very, very inconsistent Bills pass rush, which we've talked about at great length all season long. How confident are you in their ability in this game to get anything done, if at all?
Well, it's really all going to depend on if Ed Oliver decides to have an Ed Oliver game or if Greg
Yeah,
Rousseau decides to have a Rousseau game. Like, are they going to be ghosts or are they going to look like the greatest pass rusher we've seen in like 20 years? I mean, my confidence level isn't significantly high, to be honest with you, just because of how inconsistent it is. But I mean, if you can get one great game between those two players, you're pretty much set. You, you,
yeah,
you pretty much are going to control the trenches.
yeah. One thing I didn't mention with Knicks is when I was watching him, I went back and watched a few games of Bo, and one of the things I did notice that he did when anytime the pocket, he didn't face a lot of pressure. Obviously, it's very noted that this offensive line is very good in pass protection. But when the pocket did get muddied up, I noticed where he would just bail on the play. He wouldn't sit there and stand in the pocket and wait for the play to develop. Like he didn't stand in there and have sort of the calmness I expected him to do. He would kind of bail on it and just trust his athleticism more than he would trust the play. And I think the Bills can use that to their advantage. Maybe draw up a simulated pressure, bring in an extra, a rusher, a fifth rusher, create a one-on-one. Something you'll see the Broncos do a ton of in this game. They love doing that more than anybody in the league. They need to probably bring some extra rushers in against this team, especially if you can't rely on this pass rush. I think that's something that you can do. And he would also backpedal out of pockets and put himself in the harm's way. Again, he is an older rookie quarterback, but he's also inexperienced at the NFL level. So I think you put that in there. It's certainly an opportunity for the Bills to take advantage of. Trent, you had talked about their running game as well.
Yeah.
If you wanted to add something else, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
I was going to add this. This can segue into their running game because I took a quick glance at their opponents. See who they faced. They've lost a lot of one-score games this year. They've also got their ass kicked by pretty much everyone who's in the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
Their one-score game they beat was a sloppy 25 missed field goals Jets game that I used Aaron Rodgers' picture from for pretty much everything nowadays. So I see where we're getting, where they have good stats, and yes, their offensive line is very good, right?
Yes.
I'm not saying they suck. They're very good offensive line. I think that this is a team that, we talk about Vegas lines and everything, right? I think the Bills are a 9-point favorite right now.
8.5. So yeah,
8.5. Yeah, 8.5.
At a local 11 o'clock time game for Denver. I think ultimately it comes down to the Bills not fucking it up. That's ultimately what it is. It's nothing the Broncos do will beat the Bills. It'll be the Bills to beat the Bills.
I think the one way that the Broncos can beat the Bills is if they succeed at what New England did when they came here and played. Keep the ball out of Josh Allen's hands, run the ball, convert on every third down you humanly possibly can. Running the ball, converting on third down, and capitalizing on possessions. If they're putting up points almost every possession, that they can win. This isn't going to be we will probably end up blowing them out, realistically. But would I be surprised if we didn't? No. I think the way that the Bills can win this game is two reasons. You need James Cook to have a really big game. You need him. You need to be able to control the clock to keep the ball away from Denver, so they're not just eating it up. That's step one. Step two, I know we just talked about the pass rush. I don't really think the pass rush is going to be the most important part of the defensive game plan for this. I think the biggest key piece is going to be the linebacking core. If you can get a big game out of Bernard, Milano, Dorian Williams, and if they're flushing him out of the pocket, keep Bo Nix honest, keep him within tackling distance, and stop the big chunk plays over the middle of the field, like those 15-yard plays to Troy Franklin, and
Yeah.
all that. It'll help stop Marvin Mims, and it'll help neutralize that running game where they won't know what to do.
Yeah. I also think it's a lot easier for these linebackers. Like when you look at the Broncos roster, they don't have any true tight ends that are going to threaten you over the middle of the field. The running backs don't really scare you that much. I mean, they can be effective, but that's not going to be something you're going to be overly worried about. And they just don't really have a true difference maker in the middle of the field. A lot of their playmakers come on the outside and are going to be winning on in-breaking routes, and it's low percentage throws. Like the Broncos aren't going to have all these easy layups handed to them. Just because they don't have the talent to do so. But I did want to talk about the running game because you said the Bills can win the game if they're able to control the clock, and the Broncos aren't good at running the ball. Like they're okay. Obviously the offensive line does their part, but when you look at their running backs, very inconsistent. When you don't have a bona fide number one running back, it tells you everything you need to know. Like unless you're the Detroit Lions
or the Buffalo Bills.
I'm gonna ask you guys a quick question here because I was looking it up and it surprised me by how bad the rushing effectiveness was with this team. What do you guys think the total yardage was rushing for their leading rusher this season?
I'm gonna go
receiving and rushing.
Just rushing. I don't know if I said receiving.
I'm gonna go 675 yards because I think I had Jaleel McLaughlin on my team at one point.
I bet you their leading rusher was Bo Nix.
It was actually Javonte Williams at 513 yards.
Very low. I'm very curious.
Bo had like 400 something. He was close. I thought he was gonna too, and then I was like, okay. But that tells you what this rushing attack is.
They're not giving him double-digit carries every game, and frankly, he hasn't warranted double-digit carries every game.
I mean, in fairness, it's also Sean Payton offense. He has not ran the ball for 15 years. That's who he is.
Yeah. Alvin Kamara exists.
He's run the same.
So did Mark Ingram. Like he's invested. He's invested resources at the running back position.
Yards passing every single one of those seasons.
Yeah. No, I understand where you're coming from, but it's January. You need to be able to run the football to a certain extent. Like you can't completely abandon it and have your leading rusher have over 500 yards. Like that's not a recipe for success whatsoever.
The Bengals game with the Bengals stinky ass defense, they only had 10 points until like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. On that horrible, rancid defense the Bengals have.
I just think
it took Bo Nix hucking up some prayers to get up to 24.
I think this game's going to be really, really weird. I think Sean Payton is a really good offensive mind, obviously, like everyone else on the planet. And
yes, I
just feel like he's smart enough to be able to scheme up something to where they're not going to get embarrassed.
No, they're not.
This game will not cover the spread on the Bills side. I do not think so.
They'll definitely have opportunities, and I think they're going to hang around in this game. I think it could be one of those games where they're just not talented enough to keep up with Josh Allen, but they're going to hang around and just be annoying. And I look at this team. The biggest takeaway for me when I look at this offense is like, who are they throwing to outside of Cortland Sutton? They just don't have much. And then, that's part of, having a team in the cap situation that they are. And they just haven't invested. It was funny. You guys mentioned Bo Nix being the old rookie they have. They have a rookie named Devon Bailey. He's 27 years old 26. As well.
Is he 7?
He's old. It's like they really you can tell they have a type. But anyways, I would mention this one player. It's Marvin Mims. I would say if anybody could step up and make some plays, it'd be him. He's a burner. He had a ton of yards. I know it was the Chiefs and their base defense and backups were playing, but he had a very good game and a must-win game for them. He has shown ability to separate with his speed. He actually lined up in 20% of his snaps in the backfield. So they use him in a lot of different ways. They use him in sort of those gadgety plays. So he's going to be something that the Bills are going to have to be on their P's and Q's about. Watch him pre-snap, see where he's moving, because they could probably try to get some different looks to him.
He had a good game against that Chiefs defense, but he was really good the week before. He had 8 catches, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns.
You're right.
And 3 weeks before that, he had a really solid December. He can make a lot of – so over the last month, his longest plays, 32 yards, 51, 53, 11, and 93. So 4 out of the last 5 games.
I think that 93 was against the Browns, was it not?
It was. But he's had really big plays.
He has had big plays. The only concern for me with a guy like Marvin Mims is he's not going to be a receiver that's going to win on the outside. That's not how he's built to play receiver. Like when he's coming back to the football, he's not very good. But he can win with, on those deeper posts, those crossing routes. He's going to separate with, with his wheels. I wanted to ask you, Trent, you haven't spoken a while here. How much, does the shortage of weapons for the Broncos hurt their chances in this game up against the Bills defense that does have talent at the back end?
Well, if you bring a shitty musket to a AK-47 gunfight, you're not going to do very well, are you?
No.
So there you go. That's the Broncos are bringing Cortland Sutton, a guy Marvin Mims, who's a bougie Isaiah McKenzie, Troy Franklin. I thought Troy Franklin would be good.
Troy Franklin's solid. He's solid.
He's a good player.
Troy Franklin,
he definitely
but,
there's some good traits in there.
Turns out that I don't know jack shit about wide receivers.
Let's move forward here. I wanted to talk about the Broncos defense because this is a defense that is elite by every way you can put it.
Defense is legit.
It's definitely legit, and it starts up front with the guys they bring to the table. Zach Allen, Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, some of their death pieces, even
you're forgetting one.
John Franklin Myers.
Yes, there it is.
Yeah, they got some players up there, and obviously they led the NFL in sacks. They set a franchise record in sacks. They were elite all year, and it's not necessarily all talent too. I would say scheme has a big part to do with it. What Vance Joseph's done is a pretty good job after considering a year ago they had 70 points dropped on this defense. Another player I wanted to shout out was Benito Jones, who's their other interior piece. He had some nice reps when I watched him. But back to what I was saying about the scheme. So what Vance Joseph and what you'll see a lot in this game is 5-man pressure looks. You're going to see them bring in an additional rusher, whether it's a linebacker, they or a safety. Like they are going to bring a lot of simulated pressures. They want to create one-on-ones up front. They want to put their defensive linemen in the best position to succeed, and that's why Nick Bonito had 13.5 sacks. That's why Jonathan Cooper was productive. That's why all these guys succeeded. Even a guy like Zach Allen, who I think for my money is an all-pro this year, he has been phenomenal for the Broncos. They do an excellent job of creating opportunities for these guys. And, I think it's important for the Bills to understand, the Bills like running the football. Don't bang your head against this defensive line. We've seen way too many times the Bills will try to force the run against a good defensive line. It doesn't work, and it slows this offense down. I think it's important to not do that early. And so I want to ask you guys real quick, what do you guys think the Bills need to do to slow this pass rush down? I'll go with you first, Trent.
Well, typically you run effective screens. That typically helps slow pass rush down, and the Bills' odds doing that are about as good as a coin flip. Whether or not they practice good screens or not. I think the biggest thing about the pass rush is, if, like we said it on the Lost episode, which maybe someday will be found, the Bills' offensive line makes watching the offensive line fun. Like, it's fun watching the Bills' offensive line play football. So, I honestly think if you scheme the Bills, I can remember for years how good the cold front years, how good those defensive lines were. But the Patriots always had a plan for it. And basically, if you can clear out sections of the pocket or clear out a path for Josh Allen, they'll be fine. You just got to basically, you can't let them dominate your offensive line. You got to, if they're dominating, then you got to go right back to quick screens, quick throws, draw plays. You got to basically use their aggressive nature against them, which is what the offensive line loves to do. Yeah. Like, honestly, they've struggled against teams that are just either pure speed or very disciplined. And the Broncos are very much a downhill defensive line. Like, they are coming to get to your quarterback. Good teams like the Bengals, exploit this and basically say, come get me,
Yeah.
I think, they played Lamar, and Lamar put up 45 points on them, So I think if you can make the pocket navigable and let Josh play around with it, like we've seen, there's been times that it looks like the pocket's collapsed and Josh just pops out of nowhere. So
Yeah.
if you can basically make the Broncos go downhill and Deion Dawkins, Spencer Brown, Osiris Torres, they have been absolute animals at using leverage. So if they decide to go downhill, use that against them, and I think that neutralizes him quite a bit. Just stay away from Pat Surtain.
Yeah, definitely, because he's going to shut down whoever he's on. Mike, what do you think about the Bills' plan and their ability to stop this dominant pass rush?
I'm going to be honest. I don't think the pass rush really matters because
Okay.
all they have to do is, honest to God, control the contain. Josh Allen's going to do whatever he wants. As long as someone gets open at some point before he goes out of bounds, he will be able to do whatever he wants. If he wants to run the ball every play, he will. If he wants it, honestly, there is almost no one better on earth at just a broken scramble play turning absolutely nothing into something than Josh Allen. So the pass rush honestly really doesn't scare me. What scares me is our ability for our receivers to get open. And I have a feeling if Amari Cooper plays, that's probably who Pat Surtain's going to be on. But if not, watch him play a lot in the slot, I feel like, against Shakir.
Yeah.
I think they're going to try to take Shakir.
That's a good point. I looked at it like that as well. Like, if you send an initial rusher, it's probably going to vacate a big zone of your defense. And I think what the Broncos, what I personally think they'll do, I could be completely wrong, but I think their plan is, based on what they've done all season with these 5-man pressure looks, is they're going to basically say, Josh, you're going to beat us from the pocket. We're not going to let you out of this pocket. We're going to pressure you. We're going to send in extra rushers. Just beat us in the pocket. And it's like, for me, well, he's been elite in the pocket all year. He's been elite outside of the pocket all year. It's almost like you got to pick your poison. And to me, it feels like they just want Josh to beat him in the drop back passing game and hope that their secondary makes some plays. And I think Joe Brady does an excellent job scheming these guys up against man coverage. It's up to the receivers to obviously separate, which they have been very inconsistent at doing all year. But he's done a good job scheming it open. And I look at this secondary. Obviously, Pat Surtain, who's right now the odds-on favorite to be the Defensive Player of the Year. What they do a lot is they'll man him off on one half of the field, and the other half is playing zone. Like, they just basically say, Pat, take this player out of the game, and we're going to let our defense just do the rest and play zone coverage and just make Josh's life very difficult. But even then, it's going to be just a lot to ask at your defense to stop a quarterback like Josh Allen. So when I did look at this secondary, some things I would notice is they would struggle in corners a lot. A lot of these, I actually think they have a pretty underrated safety tandem. They have P.J. Locke and Brandon Jones. You guys might not remember he was with the Dolphins last year. He someone they paid this offseason, but they're pretty solid. They don't get a ton of attention. They make some nice plays, but this defense does struggle in quarters. And how you beat quarters is like a scissors concept, working these chunk throws in there. Like, Josh Allen's very good at those kind of throws. It's so if you get a look like that, I think that's something the Bills can attack. But the key takeaway from when I looked at this defense, we obviously know great pass rush, great secondary, linebackers suck. They suck. They aren't good. And the Bills are really good at exploiting matchups. And the game I kept thinking of, go back to the Detroit Lions game when they had linebackers signed off the street. The Bills just went to Ty Johnson and James Cook all day long and fed them the ball, and they went off. And they scored, 48 points. Mm-hmm. That's what Joe Brady loves doing, exploiting those one-on-ones. That plays into the very biggest strength of this offense. I wanted to go into how the Bills are going to attack this team. Another concept that the Bills like using a lot, Madden players will be very familiar with this concept, and it's a principle in the Joe Brady offense, mesh. Bills love running mesh more than probably any other team. That is going to stress these linebackers out, and that's something I expect them to do. I think maybe Dalton Kincaid could have a big game as well if you work the middle of the field like I think they're going to do against these linebackers. Use him over the middle of the field, maybe some rub routes that get these linebackers confused and out of the way. That's something I expect the Bills to do. So I'll go to you, Mike. What kind of ways do you think the Bills are going to attack this Denver defense, and how are they going to attack this defense?
What the Bills are going to need to do to win this week is Khalil Shakir is going to have to go out and earn that money, whether Pat Surtain's on him or not. He's going to have to go out there and earn that money. kill that man coverage like our guy Cole Beasley would. And we're going to have to get James Cook going. Now, I'm not saying I'm first down. I want to see Matt Collins on the outside and have us just run that same fucking dive, draw play, whatever it is that we always run 13 times this game. But you're going to need to get him into a rhythm. And if you do so, I think it opens up so many more options into this passing game. It opens up the play action, opens up the RPOs, everything.
Yeah.
And
I also think we're getting a pissed off James Cook, who did not make the Pro Bowl. Well, I don't value it, but James Cook did. Clearly on Twitter, he was not happy about it, and so that only helps the Bills. If you got a pissed off James Cook, that's great for us because he runs hard. And they definitely need to have. I honestly think it's going to come to all three of those running backs. I think they're all going to have massive roles in this game. Ty Johnson on third down as the third down back. He's been great for the Bills all season. I've been pounding the table for him to come back and extend him, whatever they need to do to get that done. I don't think it will be very much. Trent, I wanted to go to you now, kind of wrap up this talk here on the Bills offense. What ways do you kind of expect them to attack this Denver defense, and how do you think they do it?
Josh has always been like a coin flip against man coverage because if he can escape the pocket, he just absolutely makes teams pay for turning their backs on him.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably going to be the biggest thing, is exploiting the hell out of man coverage, which is making your quarterback move around and basically turning it into backyard football. Khalil Shakir, please stop dropping the football. I beg of you.
Yeah, why is that a thing now? Come on now. We were doing
I think people talk too much about how he didn't drop the football.
Yeah, he got in his head. Probably got in his head, yeah.
Yeah, he probably didn't even realize it, and then he started realizing it and came a problem. Also, another way to beat man coverage, hopefully whatever Mark Cooper's got going on, hopefully whatever's happening, he can get back to the Bills this week. If not, Keon Coleman needs to start catching the football. It probably helps if Josh Allen is throwing the football and not Mike White.
Yeah. I've said it before. I think the Bills are probably the best team in the NFL structured to beat man coverage in terms of what they do on offense. Josh Allen with his legs, we talked about that. Right? You just mentioned it. When defenses turn their back, he is just elite. And I'm pretty sure if you look at the numbers, his rushing totals, his rushing attempts, pretty much double in the playoffs. Like they basically take the reins off of him and just let him go, and they reap the benefits of it because he is so good at creating. And I expect that to continue. No matter what defense he's playing up against, he always finds a way. What do you guys think are some of the under the radar guys that are going to be sort of like X factors in this game on really both teams? I'll go to you, Mike. Who do you got for the Bills and the Broncos as kind of being your X factors?
Well, I know I've mentioned them a couple times throughout this episode, but I think James Cook's going to be one of the biggest X factors in this game, just trying to get him going and open up a lot of different options in the offense. And I think our biggest X factor defensively, there's two. I think it's going to be Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano, trying to keep Bo Nix honest, keep him in the pocket, and just try to control the middle of the field. And the biggest X factors for the Broncos, I mean, as obvious as it is to say it, I think Bo Nix. If Bo Nix cannot make any mistakes and make some big plays, it's going to give them a chance. As much as we don't want to admit it, it's going to give them a really good chance. And defensively, if the pass rush really does end up getting home all like that, who knows? We could make it caught. Don't lose the turnover battle. That's really it. Be able to run the ball. Don't lose the turnover battle, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, I'll go from here. I like how you mentioned the turnover battle. I had a few different players. Some of them are interesting, but I wanted to bring up Marvin Mims again because the Bills' special teams not good. We all know that. It's been a problem for the Bills all year, and we might not even have our own kick returner in this game. And Brandon Codrington, he's dealing with a hamstring right now. So a team that's not great, that could be a possibility. I could see that. But Marvin Mims, he's very explosive as a returner, and if you're in a game as the underdog, you're gonna want to steal possession here or there. Maybe if he takes one deep, returns it for a touchdown, it could give them the edge they need. Because you talk about in a game where you're up against Josh Allen, you're gonna need to steal a possession at the very least to give yourself a chance. And I think special teams is where they could do it. And then I had to bring up Nick Bonito as well for the Broncos. I know he's not much of an X factor because I think everybody knows his name now, but what they do with Nick Bonito is kind of interesting because they use him as their designated spy. A lot of teams you'll see linebackers. The Chiefs did it with Leo Chanel last year, Nick Bolton. Those kind of guys are going to be your typical spies. But what the Broncos do is they use it with Nick Bonito, and he's actually a pretty good athlete for his size, and he can. I'll see on plays where he'll chase down Mahomes. He'll chase down another athlete. But he's somebody the Bills definitely have to keep an eye on in terms of that because he's pretty good for his size and he can move really well. Here's a fun one for you. It was an interesting stat that I saw on Twitter. Eric Turner of Cover One posted it, and it was the Broncos defense. They are allowing 5 yards per carry when the fullback is a lead blocker. Reggie Gilliam, it is your time to shine. How about that? Give Reggie Gilliam some snaps in the backfield and let him cook. All right? You kind of already mentioned it, Mike, but I basically said the Bills running back room collectively was my X factor. It's funny enough that I mentioned how many times, they're going to be involved in the receiving game. They're first in receiving touchdowns among all running backs for a running back group in the NFL. First in yards per reception, 8th in yards after catch. Like, this is a very obvious and easy matchup for Joe Brady and this offense to exploit. And look, the numbers just speak for themselves. It's an opportunity for you to take advantage of, and I expect this Bills running back group to have a big game through the air. Trent, I'll let you go now. I know you're chomping at the bit. Who are your X factors for this game?
For the Bills, I got Rasul Douglas because I think at this point, Christian Benford's mind games aren't going to work very long because, as you said, Sean Payton's pretty good at this offensive thing. He's going to finally realize that 47's not a backup. He's one of the top 5 corners in the NFL. So he's going to tell Bo, see 47, don't throw it to him. Rasul, I feel like he's due for a good game. Like there's like inchings of it, and then it's not a good game. Like, I feel like he's due for a good game.
He's definitely known for being that ball hawking playmaker that can make that big play, and he hasn't had one in a while. Let's get your guys' score predictions and your reasonings for it. I'm gonna let you go, Trent, since you want to be first every time.
Yeah.
Let's go Bills 30, Broncos 21.
Okay. It's kind of similar to what I had.
Yeah, kind of similar to what I have as well.
I did Bills 28, Broncos 20. What'd you do, Mike?
Bills 31, Broncos 17.
Okay, that's fair. That was actually the score of the Steelers game, I want to say, last year. Might have been different, I don't know. But yeah, this is I think this they had too good of a season for it to go away in the wild card round. It just like, and at the end of the day, is Josh Allen going to put the Super Bowl or Superman cape on? Yes, I would bet on him doing so. And the Broncos are just inexperienced in these kind of games, and they're on the road. It's hard for them to come into this environment, play against a team that's had a ton of playoff experience, has done this before, has the better team, has the better quarterback. It's going to be
just no way
an
something
uphill climb.
that devastating could happen to the city of Buffalo.
Exactly. And it would never happen to us. Right? We're so good in these moments. We're perfect. All right. I think it's time to get into some long-awaited questions submitted by the followers and fans of the show. So we do appreciate everybody sending in some questions for tonight. I'll take the lead here, and then I'll toss them up to you guys as well.
Ben,
this comes.
Let Trent go first.
No, I mean, yeah. Why not? Why not give Trent the lead? I absolutely have to.
You have to.
We should. Thank you. I'm glad you all finally admit it.
This is kind of crazy, but this comes from mstelts_2. He said, he says, how will we find a way to make Pat Surtain not be a big game changer in this game? And I want to say it's probably impossible. But Trent, what do you think the Bills need to do that?
How can you make a game changer not a game changer?
I just don't know how you do that.
Easy. The Broncos probably stand at the Avs Mark Hotel. That's where a lot of the away teams stay. Find out what room he's in. If he orders up some room service, make sure that the Chinese food's not that good. Maybe a little bit old. Maybe Maybe order some cheeseburgers, make it a little too
Listen, they're
raw.
okay with shit in their pants. All right, there's that one NFL player that used to pee his pants every game. They're okay with it. All right,
Nah, just a
you're
little bit
not
of food.
stopping Pat Sertan.
A
If you
little
stop
bit,
Pat
I don't.
Sertan,
Yeah.
then I don't know.
little
Then
bit,
cool, you did it. But like,
little bit of food
no one else can
poisoning.
do it. It's not going to be you. It's not going to be us. Pat Sertan's going to be great. I'm sorry. That's just the way the cookie crumbles.
The simple
His
answer is.
cheese has a little too much glue in it.
Mm-hmm. Simple answer is just don't throw to his side of the field. That's literally it. Like that's the only thing you can do, and like he's just that good. Like
Yep.
he might get targeted twice this entire game. Like he basically, I think the Bills' approach is we're gonna just work away from him. We're gonna look at the matches we have across the board that doesn't involve Pat Surtain. Whoever's on Pat Surtain, you're gonna have the unselfish role of getting 0 catches and 0 yards, which the Bills' offense usually does. Like they'll have that. They have a guy that usually goes up against the number one corner who gets like 1 or 2 catches, maybe 0 catches in a game, and they just play that unselfish role of being that guy for that week. And it's sort of a Joe Brady MO of doing that. And I think the Bills just need to work away from him. It's cut and dry as that.
Also, I think probably part of it too, on a serious note, would be make sure Josh doesn't go into demon mode. Because demon mode Josh will throw it to him no matter what. Just try it.
You mean just say fucking arm punt?
Yeah, he'll just say, you know what? Keon Coleman could posterize this guy. I'm feeling it.
He probably could. He probably could. KA Caddy 9 asks, should we be worried about third downs and how can we stop them? And the short answer is yes. This Bills defense has been historically terrible on third down. We've seen it all year. Literally the Drake May Patriots who whack playmakers everywhere made this team look like garbage on third down. And it's been frustrating to watch all year. I think this is probably the worst defense they've had since the 2020 year, where they just struggled on third down as well. It feels a lot similar to that. They made the AFC Championship that year, so at least you got that going for you. But yeah, it's tough to watch. They need to make adjustments. They need to improve, and hopefully, when you make this many mistakes, you can only learn and get better from it. So I guess there's a positive spin to put on it, but the short answer is it's very concerning, and it'll be something to monitor throughout the playoffs, and we'll see how this staff adjusts accordingly. I'm sorry, Trent, you're not going to get this question, and you would have loved to got this question, but I purposely saved it for Mike because I wanted him to answer it because he's not going to be biased. This guy asked, should we see more of Dorian Williams in this game if Matt Milano is not performing? Mike, you want to take this one?
No,
really?
Because I said, I had this conversation with a couple of our buddies earlier, and I gotta say, when it comes down to it, who's more likely to do something stupid? Dorian Williams. So I would much rather, Matt Milano has not looked sensational, but I would much rather know that Matt Milano is going to be in the right spot when he needs to be in the right spot, rather than just take the YOLO shot at the big play with Dorian Williams. Nothing stupid. All right. Not when we don't need it.
I definitely think he can play more. I mean, at least take some of the load off of Milano.
He can definitely play.
Because he can definitely be, at the very least, I've said this before, like a quality relief pitcher for you, and pitch in maybe on early downs or something like that. And maybe that improves Milano if Milano isn't asked to be playing as much as he is. And look, by the team scratching Milano in Week 18, it tells me that they view him as the bona fide starter at weak side linebacker, and he's going to get most of the playing time, which is perfectly fine. We all know how good Matt Milano is when he's, healthy and good to go. We do love Josh Allen. We do love the Bills. It should be a fun game Sunday at 1:00. We appreciate everybody tuning in. And as always, go Bills.